to see Maureen Ehrenberg from JLL. Thank you very
Hi.
much for being here.
Thank you.
So I just asked Jim this, and I'll ask you, what are your big themes that you're seeing emerging from the conference this year?
It's very consistent around the digitization of real estate.
Yes.
So whether it's experience, as Jim was just talking about, but really all the way down to valuation, and how ultimately, whether it's co-working or different models where blockchain plays into it for maybe breaking apart the traditional construct of real estate and driving value, it's all around this incredible transformation. And I mean, transformation is an overused word, but it really is a time of always-on transformation. It's not stopping, and as a matter of fact, it's speeding up.
Yeah. So when you look out and you talk about transformation, what does that mean for you, especially at JLL?
Well, we said several years ago we were watching a convergence occur. And this convergence had to do with and actually Bob Slentik said it earlier as well from CBRE, this idea that technology is becoming embedded, but it's actually converged with the built environment, with the buildings, the facilities, the properties themselves, but then also this concept of workplace and human experience. And so those things together and combining is creating different ways to consume space, different ways to sell space, market space, and even for a corporation, different ways to actually provide space to their employees. So a very different format, even in the ability to share. And what this means ultimately for the impact for public space, for train stations, for Amtrak. If you start thinking about the GSA and their holdings, there's a real opportunity here to create a financial revenue model if they could use some of these public areas differently and charge for it.
I see. Please expand that a little bit.
Okay. So if you think about just a concept around co-working or an open marketplace, and you've put tools in place in a digital format that, let's say you take the train in the morning, you don't have an appointment, you don't even have an office in New York City, right, but you could have the ability to work in a hot desking environment at the train station. It allows those utilities to start to monetize the vast amounts of public space that they have.
Yeah.
And it's the same for malls. If you think about just the inefficiency of some of the built environment, there's all of a sudden a way to monetize that used to be like these common stranded areas, big overhead expense areas that can actually help to, particularly for older properties, renew the capital investment, renew the infrastructure, which for ages has been a real problem, even with the military.
Right. I mean, that's a ton of space that doesn't always get utilized. So are you at JLL looking at your facilities and thinking, well, you know, maybe we can repurpose this?
At our facilities, our customers are looking at this, looking at ways to maybe get more utilization within some facilities, and then if they've got other buildings that they are going to vacate, maybe still hold and own, maybe create those into shared co-working environments, particularly if you've got a really strong brand.
Right.
That could be an attractant for whether it's people in the local community or even partner organizations that you work with. Another thing that we're looking at is, it looks that we think by about 2030, about 40% of the workforce will be cloud employees. So with all those independent contractors, you have to have an environment, when you talk about human engagement and experience, you have to ensure that those on-demand employees can be as productive and get up to speed as quickly as someone who's been in an organization 15 or 20 years.
Right.
Because the less likely it is and the easier, the harder it is for them to plug in, you lose a lot of productivity from that cloud workforce.
Right.
So to be able to, again, create more of a very easy-to-use digital format where people can kind of plug and play, that will make the cloud workforce more productive and more engaged.
What are some of the tactics that you employ to make sure that your workforce is as engaged as possible?
Oh, everything from, we're looking at, we've done a lot of research with Harvard, for example. Dr. Joseph Allen is here. We're engaged in a study with Harvard and UTC on productivity, cognitive function, just regarding how the building systems run and operate, bringing enough oxygen and fresh air into the space, all the way down to food offerings, wellness, light, sunlight, what is the amount of toxicity, just in the environment, chemicals that are being used, and then also looking at programs with the community, getting engaged, corporate social responsibility. All of that actually has a lot to do, ultimately, with the whole idea around a digital footprint, because the more dense your utilization becomes, the more important these other more healthy attributes become. There's nothing worse than an overcrowded, unhealthy space.
Absolutely. And what's an area in the last, say, year or so that you guys at JLL have employed some of that, where you go, you know what, I'm pleased with how we implemented that? Is there a case?
Well, we launched some very important industry research a couple of years ago called The Future of Work. And we looked at the key drivers behind that, the financial acumen, the digital drive, the human experience. And where we're doing a lot of research right now is really in that human experience piece. So working actually with several different corporations, some of our large investor clients and our large corporate clients, on actually measuring human productivity. So not just the return on investment, but actually the return on people. Because at the end of the day, the whole idea around there must be some sort of financial return.
Right.
Because otherwise it's just kind of fun stuff to have.
Right.
It doesn't really have a longevity of a purpose. So we're measuring productivity in as far as getting a baseline knowledge of an employee base to say what's making you less productive, understanding what those things are, and getting them out of the system so people can say they're able to do their best work. And some of this goes all the way down to trolling the hallways looking for a conference room, make that very simple, make you engaged, and all the way down to how long does it take to get your food? How do you get that up to your desk? What are some of those common nuisances that just get in the way, and to get that out?
What's been a solve, say, for the food problem or for the conference room problem that you guys have implemented?
So everything from using the lighting to look at the occupancy to kind of shift around the design of the conference rooms for how many people are typically meeting.
Right, because some of those rooms are just too large. You have like a 1 in a million chance of needing that much space, so maybe cutting them in half or...
Yes. Cutting them in half, also getting single-purpose rooms, because some people just want to make a private phone call.
Right.
They really need more of a booth. They don't need a conference room. But some kind of common sense things, like right now when you set out a meeting invite with a call-in, you don't know how many people are actually going to physically show up and how many are calling in.
Right.
So getting much more science around who is actually calling in. Do you even need a conference room?
Right.
And then also the awkwardness around people crowding outside. So using lights to dim maybe 5 minutes before it's time to end the meeting, so you get a heads up, this meeting's over. We've got some clients right now that we've put an override in, that if you've got an outside customer in, you can actually bump the next person in the conference room, redirect them, and keep your meeting running smoothly rather than the awkward door sliding and we're in here next. Some of those things really make a difference on your experience at work and also your customer's perception.
Where does this come from? From at a company like JLL, there's this obvious, striving for innovation, but there's a very humanistic way that you're talking about this. What's the central value that this is coming from?
We've got a cross-functional team. We do a lot of sprints. So what we'll do is we'll take people that are looking more on the softer services side, people from soft services and hospitality background, but then also our data scientists and our IT group and our ops group. And then we will talk about scenarios, get customer feedback, and then also kind of sitting down in visioning sessions to talk with customers and then designing something and doing a tech sprint.
Yeah.
So and it works, because what we're finding today is people used to say, well, let's plan it 18 months and 24 months. And this year at Davos, Justin Trudeau said that change has never happened at this rate and speed in the history of man, and it will never be this slow again. So the idea for our customers today is, let's try it. Let's just experiment. We can always figure it out. Let's just go and do something. So it's great because we just have a lot of living labs and then learnings, and then we share it.
Yeah. Oh, Maureen, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and ideas with us. Maureen Ehrenberg from JLL.
Thank you.